Gamers who have put thousands of hours into many different games. What is the game that made you blank stare at the credits after you beat the story? Journey. I didn't know. When Journey was recommended to me, the people who recommended it basically said, the less you know about the game going in, the more you will enjoy the game. They were right. I didn't see anyone say it, so I got to mention Knights of the Old Republic 2, Sith Lords. Trying to wrap my head around such a complicated villain and figure out what it all meant was amazing to me as a kid. Really opened my eyes to the fact that games could be more than looty shoot undefined. I both want desperately to see a COTA 3 in my lifetime. Been waiting almost 20 years. While in the other hand I don't, because my bar/standard is too high, and they'll screw it up. Portal. Replayed a few days ago. Played beginning to end in one sitting, and completely forgot about real life happening around me. Such a good game, and so many clever levels. The credits song is so awesome, too. John Colton. Most of his stuff is that good. Mass Effect 1. In my opinion, one of the best science fiction fantasy stories on its own out there, not just in games. In general. The story was good. The ending was satisfying. The characters and music were all amazing. I remember after beating the game for the first time, watching the final speech by Anderson and the Normandy fly off into the galaxy. M4 Part 2 hits different now than it did then. But on the first go, it was literal magic. The credits flew by as I got lost in the music. And that exact moment was when I knew I would love this series forever. No matter what happened to it or where it went. Really excited to relive it one more time in May. I played Me 2 and Me 3, both of which are excellent games that I love dearly. But Me 1 was breathtaking in a way that's utterly inexplicable to me. The story, the pacing, the characters, the choices that you make ripple out across the game, and it's so completely satisfying from start to finish. It's a game that truly blindsided me and easily is in my top 5. It was written with such care and precision and I wish I could play it again for the first time. I still think Me 1 is the only Me game with a real, heavily impactful choice that really makes you consider which choice to pick. The others had similar choices and had situations which would be tough choices like it, but they are in my opinion ruined by the ability to paragon/renegade your way to the shore. But instead I'll just take the good of both options and none of the negatives option. Knights of the Old Republic. Carth. I don't want to talk about it. Mockery. Oh, Master. I do not trust you. I cannot trust you. Or anyone. Ever again. Subnautica. Wow. That game, even though I spoiled it for myself, was very emotional. Can't wait to first see Below Zero at release. My first playthrough was an emotional roller coaster. Gaping in awe the first time I entered Lost River. Giggling and bouncing around like a kid when I finally got my first Cyclops. Blasting a Reaper away from my base with my repulsor cannon in territorial rage and much more. Welcome aboard, Captain. Link's Awakening. The game warns you. It doesn't sugarcoat it. You know what you're up to and what will happen when you finish the game. Still. I woke up the big fish, and the island disappeared, and the realization of what I'd done floored me. I killed the whole island, Marine, Mario, the annoying owl, every animal, every sentient, living inhabitant of that world that I had learned to like. I was 10. Do you kill everything? I assumed, since it was all just a dream. Everything was just fake, and you didn't actually harm anyone by waking up the windfish. I also just figured the monsters didn't want you to do it because they were made by some malevolent force trying to take over Link's mind, and he needed to stay asleep for that to happen. It brings up an interesting philosophical question. Were the inhabitants of Koholint real? Yes, they were a dream, but they all had their own dreams, emotions, families, wants. You got to know them over the travels, and does them being a dream make them any less real? Fallout New Vegas. especially at the end of the DLCs. I always just sit there staring at the screen, even after you return to the mojave. Dead money the most when you come back and stare at the radio and just hear Christine's voice on the other side wishing you well if you chose certain options. OFC always gives me chills and leaves me with such an empty feeling. Dead money was a peeping gem, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Wind Waker. Funny enough, LoZ has always done well with the you can never fully reclaim the past plotline. It is bittersweet and wonderful. Many of the stories are often about finding beauty in the moment, and amidst darkness and ruin. We can't go back to what we lost, whether it's people, time, history, the world, but we can still live and keep moving forward. The bedrock of the series is that courage and wisdom can work together and struggle to overcome power. They do melancholy and isolation, and being happy anyway really well. Also the Zach Gorman Zelda cartoons are great. Telltale's first Walking Dead. It had me bawling. Me and my brothers played that game together, and I think we all just sat there slack-jawed for a while at the end. Then we reloaded an earlier save to try and get the good ending. Outer Wilds. This one was truly epic. One of the best games I've ever played. The most refreshing game I've played in years that reminded me how good of a solo experience gaming can be. Maybe Metal Gear Solid 1. It was probably 2 AM, and I was tired as hell. Just sat there watching the end credits with that woman singing. The phone call at the end gave me chills. What a weird moment. MGS is what made me realize games can be art. Kojima is so weird and innovative. Psycho Mantis. Gotta move to controller port 2. Bloodborne. I turned into a peeping slug, and then the credits roll. Undefined. I remember showing that ending to my friends and both of them didn't know how to process what they saw. Mayo. Halo Reach. Doing the final mission not knowing how it is supposed to end the first time is so good. Right? I was just waiting for Halsey and Jun to pull some bullspeep space magic to pick me up. I just had to hold out long enough. Hillblade. Senua's Sacrifice was my most recent one where I just needed to sit and process the experience and respect the team that put that together. A shame that not so many people know this game. It's beautiful and the fights are not too hard, but at the same time not easy. Half-Life 2. The trauma is still fresh after all these years. Came here to say this one. You ever play the subsequent episodes? I actually meant to say Half-Life 2 Episode 2. I'm still hopeful to live long enough to see Half-Life 3 though. Soma. I played through Soma with 2 friends and there were at least 3 moments we were all just silently staring at the screen in shock. Such a great game. Actually quite a few. Last of Us. BioShock Infinite. Red Dead Redemption 2. However literally. Final Fantasy VII. After the very short outro, the game displays a starfield. I thought that there is a real outro, so I literally watched the stars passing by for like 30 minutes. Yup, BioShock Infinite gave me goosebumps. Damn, what a amazing game and story. Agreed. The second walkthrough was the real peep though, when so many things / events making so much more sense. Red Dead Redemption 2. That game made me care about the people, story and world more than any film or series could. Exactly. When the game started I was like, haha, cowboys riding horses and shooting, but by the end I'd spent so much time with all the characters I literally felt like I lived the experience with them, and that they were real people living in a real world. There aren't many games out there that can do this. RDR2 is my favorite game to date. Gotta add Titanfall 2 to this list. Protect the pilot. When you eject from your Titan in MP mode, there's a small chance for the last message it briefly flashes up to be. Protocol 3. Protect the pilot. Complete with little heart. Spoiler alert. Far Cry 4. Learning about how you've been working with, arguably, the bad guys this entire time. How your father had murdered your half-sister who was a baby and your mother killing him in return, thus triggering the civil war. When you finally place your mother's ashes next to your half-sister's, followed by the quote from the note you have at the start of the game, "I love you and will always be with you, Mom," and learning that pagan minimum, the villain only wanted to help you by bringing you to your sister's resting place at the start of the game, and how either of the leaders you sided with are not exactly going to make the country better. Rather turn it into a drug country and conscription of children, or a traditional and religious that kills those you do not accept it, accompanied by some of the greatest soundtracks I have ever heard. And all of this described above and more all happen in the span of about 10 minutes. Spoiler alert. Wait for the Crab Rangoon. Crab Rangoon ending is the true ending. Mere Automata. How the game presents you nihilism, existentialism, absurdism, etc. The last choice you have to choose. The last fight. Although it's not my favorite game, I don't think any game comes near to what Nier Automata did. Also, you get to stare at the credits up to 26 times. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Honestly, both of those games, but especially the second one. Right after the credits ended, I stayed up till 4 AM getting 100% completion. BC, I just hadn't had enough. Shriek's ending was the saddest thing I've ever seen in a video game. Prey 2017. This game really doesn't get the praise it deserves. Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. My first playthrough, I accidentally turned off objective markers for the divine beasts and had to find them all on my own. It was such an amazing experience in a world that was designed to be bigger than just the player. I didn't know what to do with myself after I finished. It took me a solid month to beat that game. Spec Ops the Line. Do you feel like a hero yet? This peeping game. It absolutely got me the first playthrough. I made my choices because I thought they were the right calls, and just let myself slip into the heart of darkness. When I replayed it, I found that there were some places where a choice was compelled. Should let end the game 5 minutes into mission 1. Let me fight through without the mortar, but I only saw the rails when I went looking for them. I made the bad calls in real time without their help. One of the few shooter games I've ever bothered to replay. Red Dead Redemption 2 and Persona 5. Both brought me to tears by the credits. Seconding Persona 5. I played through the Royal Edition, and it made me cry again. There's just something really powerful about the ending music. Hard to pinpoint the game. Batman, Arkham Knight, BioShock Infinite, Outer Wilds, The Last of Us 1, Half-Life 2, Episode 2, Portal 2, Mass Effect 3, Xenosaga 3, Infamous 1, Second Son. Outer Wilds did me in. I couldn't stop thinking of that game. The Stanley Parable. That was a cool game that has a cool ending. That's all I'm gonna say. I'd like to play this again, but I'm going for the Go Outside achievement. Only 4 more months to go. Thank you for reminding me to check if I can play again, lol. Final Fantasy X. Came here looking for FFX. Fallout 3. Before I got the DLC. 110% came here to post this. Hahaha. I was so mad. So you're telling me I brought a super mutant companion with me all this way? Horizon Zero Dawn. The only game to ever make me do that. I was in shock for about 5 minutes. HZD was peeping brilliant emo. The mystery as you first start. You figuring out what the peep happened. Hearing your first audio logs. Speculating about what could have possibly happened. Trying to explain the robots etc. I honestly wish I could forget my experience playing the game, so I can experience all those emotions again with a fresh mindset. There are a few pieces of media where I wish I could delete them from my brain and experience them for the first time again, and HZD is near the top of that list. The Good Place, Harry Potter series, and Avatar: The Last Airbender are there, too. Low Z. OOT on the N64. Hearing Zelda's lullaby in the end of the credits with the still image is just something so unique that I probably won't experience again from a video game. It is like looking back at your old college, group friends, or your childhood home. It's bittersweet with memories. Super Mario Galaxy 1 Undefined. Dude. I feel you. First game I ever owned and beat. I played it so much when I was 6, and I've beaten it countless times. I cry every time at the end of the first one. I just finished Control today and was definitely in a bit of a daze. What an interesting and unique game. Truly a different experience. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I legit almost cried in front of my parents after that ending. I think Witcher 3 and RDR2 did that to me. Witcher 3 definitely did that for me. It was a legendary game. Rest easy Witcher. Drink your wine and watch the sunset. Easily Chrono Trigger. I've got an odd one. Battle Block Theater. From Behemoth Alien Hominid. Castle Crashers. Pit People. I didn't see the ending coming at all and it peeped me up. But other than that game, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, Dark Souls 1, all 3 Metro games. Actually I just finished Metro Exodus and got the bad ending and I cried for the whole credits. What a phenomenal game. You know Halo Reach? The end mission was something of beauty to me. It has sentimental value to me because it was the first game I ever completed the campaign of. HMM. I can name 3 games. Earthbound, Undertale Pacifist Ending, and To the Moon. Oh, To the Moon. Undertale Pacifist had me crying at the beginning of the game. Before I knew anything about it, I didn't think a game with that kind of simplistic art style could make me feel so strongly. But the dialogue makes the characters so strong and so lovable. It's such a beautiful game. The genocide ending made me cry too, but for other reasons. Final Fantasy IV, at the time, known as Final Fantasy II in the US. Many games have made me blank out after the credits have finished in my 30 years of gaming, but this was the first. FF4 was what started my love of story-driven games. I completely agree that FF4 was the first game that made me care about the story too. Though to be fair, Final Fantasy IV was one of the first video games whose entire story wasn't told in the manual. There were twists, turns, character deaths, and it really made you immersed into their world. The only other game that was released around the same time that I can think of that did the same thing was Phantasy Star 2. Night in the Woods. That game hurt. Life is Strange. Life is Strange had me in a really weird, slightly melancholic mood for like a week after I finished. Same here. I felt like I had a bunch of emotional issues that I had to speak to somebody about. Lol, what ending did you choose? Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Trials and Tribulations. Bridge to the Turnabout had me crying into my DS at 4 AM. Detroit. Becoming Human. I was absolutely floored. Stuck there with my jaw dropped and just staring into the screen for several minutes. That game was amazing. My first playthrough I managed to get everyone out alive. My sister has played it about 4 times and has yet to get everyone to live. Legacy of Kain series. Didn't expect that it would turn out like this in the end. Ghost of Tsushima. The story broke my heart. Doki Doki Literature Club, no doubt. Shadow of the Colossus. This answer is way too far down the list. Though the moment on the bridge on the way to the last Colossus hit me harder than the end. You know what I'm talking about. Assassin's Creed. Brotherhood. When Desmond is forced by the apple to kill Lucy seemingly out of nowhere. I was really enjoying their relationship and hoping to get her as a playable character since we had her for 3 games already. Jaw on floor for a bit. Inside. I won't talk about it, cause the whole game is an experience on its own. But damn. That game makes you ponder WTF just happened for a really long time. Assassin's Creed Black Flag. IDK. If I've played anything that matched the emotions I felt at the end of that game. The realization that everyone you met along the way died living lives of freedom. It was powerful. Portal. Soma. Started as a horror story in a cool setting. Ended as emotionally wrecking thought experiment on the topic of human mind and consciousness. The Last of Us 1. Disco Elysium. More games need to allow roleplay beyond just literal angel or evil psychopath. Being able to choose to be reckless and angry, or bitter and sad, or just aloof and along for the ride was a revelation. Playing a FP-up shouldn't be so satisfying, but it really is. Subnautica. Hands down the best story-based survival game I have ever played. Brothers. Without spoiling anything, the change in controls made the game extra impactful and special. As much speep as Cyberpunk got, one of the options at the end was to go out on your terms. During the end credits you see various friends leaving you a video chat trying to cope with it. At first I thought they were glorifying suicide. But as you hear from different people, you get the entire picture. Some are understanding that you didn't want to rot away in your own body. Some are angry at you for giving up. And one possible romance option is just emotional lie destroyed. You bring the second lover they lost in under a year. Even writing now I have a tear in my eye. It's really powerful stuff. My man, when Pam shouted at me because I chose not to involve her in the final mission because I didn't want her to die. It literally made me replay the whole last mission. Mere Automata. Blank stare and tears running down. Shadow of the Colossus. I have played over 1,000 different video games and this is the only game that moved me to tears. The game is so powerfully emotional and it affected me so much that I didn't go to school the day after I beat it. Anyone that has played through the game and beaten it can either completely relate or is heartless. I was looking for Sotsi in the comments and had to scroll criminally far to see the first mention of it. That game left a void in me for a while. Not thousands of hours, but about 500 in Breath of the Wild. First time I beat it, I just stared at the screen as the credits rolled, then went back as I had a bunch of side quests to finish lol. Also 3 years later, and have only completed about half of the side quests lol. Tetris. Impressive. And here I thought I was the only person who's beaten Tetris. Minecraft. It isn't technically end credits, but after you beat the Ender Dragon you read a conversation between two godly beings, and it is a really long conversation. It takes a while to read it all, and when I've tried I haven't had the patience to. Oh, I've peepin' loved those end credits. It's one of the most profound things I've ever read in a video game. It's perfect, with its fourth wall breaks and parallels to reality and dreams. Donkey Kong Country. I was so disappointed at how easy the fake K rule was, that I sighed and looked down, like I was in a sad movie. Then I heard something, and saw my ass getting kicked by the real final K rule. Outer Wilds 100%. Beautiful game with a beautiful ending. Resident Evil 4. All I want is that sweet typewriter. Sekiro. Knowing From's off to a rare and making a sequel, no matter how successful it was. Call of Duty MW2. Almost crying. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. The entire game is a masterpiece. It truly makes you feel anxious, scared, hopefully, and brave. Against all odds you know the only way to finish the game is to stop fighting. Yet you continue fighting because you love this character so much and you don't want to give up on her. So good. Can't wait for the next one! Exclamation mark. Bloodborne. I can't describe how I felt, but it took me to the future. Thinking, how can you improve something like that? If I had to name one that killed me inside the most, it'd have to be Crisis Core. Final Fantasy VII for the PSP. I knew what would happen at the end. but the sequence of events leading up to it made the ending sequence sting even harder. Specifically, seeing Zack make so many connections with people throughout the story, with one of the game's primary mechanics revolving around unleashing abilities drawn from those connections. Exclamation mark. Then, Zack's last stand. Seeing that game mechanic gradually break down as he gets overwhelmed by the literal army he's fighting off, culminating in the last few fatally gunning him down as he's too exhausted to fight back. Afterwards, he lays dying in front of Cloud, while thinking fondly of Aerith. As a bonus, I went nuts in the FF7 remake when it's revealed at the end that Zack survived the fight due to the Protoss defying fate and splitting the timeline, meaning he's likely to appear in a later installment. I can only say I blank stare at all credits, because most RPGs put a hidden scene after the credits that wraps up or speaks of the future. I find most credits pretty boring, but I never skip them due to this. One exception is Nier Automata. They turned the credits into this old arcade space shooter game where the people's names animate as enemies shooting bullets at you. Here, it's brilliant. Amori. I'm usually pretty good at guessing endings, but that one surprised me. Any Half-Life game including Black Mesa new soundtracks on the beginning of the chapters are huge vibes. Hollow Knight, Firewatch, Wolfenstein New Blood and New Colossus. Recently, Persona 5, Bloodborne, and Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2. Nier Automata as well, but I don't know if staring blankly at credits is the right way to put it with that game lol. Inside. Hollow Knight. Portal 2. Peeping 999 9 hours. 9 persons. 9 doors. It's fantastic and I adore it. But man, the different endings on their own are like WTF. Then you get to the final ending and it's just, literally just wondering what the hell just happened. Persona 3 was the first game that I remember feeling truly lost after playing a game. Like legit, what do I do with my life now? I didn't want it to be over. I wanted to keep hanging out with the people and exploring and everything. The ending of that game just completely crushed my 16-year-old soul. It's still my favorite game of all time. Multiple games actually. Hollow Knight blank stare and twitching muscles for the next few hours after every ending including P5 and Path of Pain. Ori and Blind Forest because it's beautiful. Subnautica because it may be the best game ever created. Witcher 3 because it might be the best game ever created. Prey 2017. The game itself can be slow and boring, but the ending is just brilliant. Super hot. Monkey Island 2nd. I don't think I have ever felt anything quite like that. The ending still blows my mind today. Final Fantasy 9. Enderal. Soma. Final Fantasy 15th. Assassin's Creed 2. That ending totally blindsided me. It was odd enough in the first game that they hid the science fiction storyline to begin with, but the ending to 2 was just an absolute curveball at the time. Maybe not the kind of blank stare you were hoping for. Undefined. I have never played a video game with a story all the way through. Since Counter-Strike I have only played multiplayer. I read books for story. Computer games are just for fun. Cry of Fear. I've certainly played games I liked more, and ones that were more impactful in general. But Inside. I bought it on the Switch, just because the preview looked cool. It's a side-scroller with nice artistry. And it looked scary in a good way. You just keep running, while people are looking for you. And there are people marching along in the background, like mind-controlled zombies. Seemed interesting. When those credits rolled my only thought was what the f*** just happened. Definitely recommend. I'd say Spiritfarer also left me feeling heavy afterward, that I just had to sit there a bit. And also A Short Hike. Just another one like Inside where it caught me off guard. Sorry, these are only recent games I've played. I don't have a good memory. Mia. Automata after ending E. Lots of tears followed. Journey. The Last of Us 2. FFXV only BC of the amount of hours I had to put in. The story was meh. Uncharted 4. Life is strange. I even blank stared the next morning on the train just thinking about it. Hollow Knight. The combat, platforming, and the visuals all are truly astonishing. The combat feels so fluid and challenging. But challenging as in a way of being unthinkable in the early game to triumph against a certain beast. But as you improve and obtain better nails and strategies, it becomes more manageable. The platforming feels great also. As you go further into the game, the more you can travel, and the further in the game. Also, the skill and practice it takes to take on the path of pain complements it quite nicely. And the visuals won't really age. Unlike the hyperrealism from bigger titles will age and look kinda dumb later. The cartoonish visuals of Hollow Knight won't really age. The music is great too. But there are negatives also. Including the harsh treatment the game gives you, and not giving you a clear path might have hurt many people's enjoyment of the game. Also, the cartoonish visuals might turn a lot of people off. Alongside that, the game doesn't really have a main goal. Yeah, there's the Hollow Knight and Dreamers, but other than that there's no goal. It's a good game. It's not perfect mind you, but it's very much worth the money. Also, tip for newer players. Don't grind gear after a few purchases. Gear will become obsolete. You won't need it later. Only grind if you want unbreakable charms. Dragon Age Origins. I romanced Alistair, and he sacrificed himself at the end. I couldn't believe that this had just happened.